At the recent Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup, South Africa impressed by making their first final in the tournament. Earlier in the event, Nigeria beat both New Zealand and Ireland and showed that they are also putting up their hand in the world of cricket. Bar for pockets of success, women's sports on the continent is lagging behind, however. To speak more about this is the head of the African Union Sports Council, Dr. Decius Chipande, who joins us now from Yaoundé in Cameroon. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Africa. Thanks for being our guest. The challenges are so vast when it comes to women's sport. How is the African Union hoping to start turning the tide?
Thank you very much for having me, Valen. Yes, so the African Union Sports Council is actually currently conducting a campaign that aims at providing, resources, information, storytelling opportunities to motivate individuals, communities, governments, and sports organizations to embrace sports as a transformative platform to achieve some of the African Union Agenda 2063 aspirations of the Africa we want. So we are basically pushing the agenda of educating, inspiring, empowering, and advocating for safe, equitable, inclusive sporting environment at all levels and in all sports codes across the continent. Above all, we are raising the visibility of girls, women, and persons with disabilities, and giving them a platform to share their sporting stories at grassroots level, at club level, and at elite levels. And above all, our agenda as African Union Sports Council in this Keep Moving campaign is also to create a partnership. For example, we are actually working closely with the German Development Corporation, GIZ, to implement and upscale the campaign, to keep women, girls, and persons with disabilities engaged and prioritized in the African Union member states and all stakeholders' sports agendas.
How are you guys going to make sure that it's more than just a social media campaign with a nice-sounding hashtag, that it actually has some real traction on the ground? Because some of the barriers that we're talking about is actually going to need engagement with sporting federations, with governments, with people who are in decision-making positions, and more than just highlighting women's visibility in sport on the continent.
Yes, Valen, very good question. So the African Union member states ministers responsible for sports, and these are the 55 African Union member states. In the African Union framework, they are called the Specialized Technical Committee on Youth, Culture and Sports, endorsed a policy for sustainable development of sports in Africa in 2023. That is running from 2023 to 2033. And the African Union policy on sustainable development of sports in Africa encourages all African Union member states to develop and strengthen gender equity and disability rights in sports, and ensuring that they are mainstream in national policies and strategies and frameworks. So to implement this policy, the African Union Sports Council has developed a 5-year strategic plan that runs from 2024 to 2028. And the strategic plan stresses on the need to mainstream equity and inclusion of all African citizens in sports, physical education, and physical activity and recreation. And the strategy also aims at utilizing the power of sports to contribute towards, gender equality and inclusion, and not only on the playing field, but also in society as a whole, And raising awareness, which we are doing, is one of the main activities in this strategic plan. So we are also engaging the member states, all 55 African Union member states at governmental level, and ensuring that they mainstream these policy frameworks and ensure that they're implemented in national sports structures, federations, and scale down to communities to ensure that then it reaches the individual citizen in the rural communities in particular.
One of the biggest questions that comes up whenever we speak about a woman's challenges in sport is the issue of funding. How are you guys going to actually help to facilitate that funding is backed by the type of visibility that you want to be giving women's sport on the continent?
Perfect. That is the most critical issue, because mainstreaming sports, particularly policies regarding inclusion of women, girls, and persons with disabilities in national policies and frameworks, entails also ensuring that, there is funding that goes with it. And this is why, we are pushing the agenda, aggressively engaging the member states, the ministers themselves, the honorable ministers responsible for sports across the African continent, committed themselves to mainstreaming women, girls, and persons with disabilities and prioritizing them in sports, ensuring that they are funded, they are receiving quality expertise, coaching like any other sports sector, and across all sports. And above all, they get sufficient funding. So that is a very serious commitment that the African Union member states have committed themselves to, and it is in line with the Agenda 2063 aspirations of the Africa we want, of ensuring that women, girls, and persons with disabilities are put center stage. So we are very hopeful that funding definitely will come along as long as we ensure that the policy frameworks are mainstreamed.
Thank you very much. That is Dr. Decius Chipande chatting to us from Yaoundé, Cameroon, about the African Union Sports Council's newest campaign to elevate girls and women's sport on the continent with hashtag Keep Africa Moving.